The Galactic Council, a sprawling assembly of representatives from various alien species, sat in tense silence. Around the large holographic table, the leaders of the Zorith, Sikuri, Vrika, and other powerful factions exchanged uneasy glances. The human fleet had only been spotted on the outskirts of known space, but rumors of their technology were already spreading like wildfire. "We cannot afford to underestimate them," the Zorith Supreme Commander, Velorn, growled, his voice dripping with disdain. His angular face twisted in a sneer as he dismissed the human presence with a flick of his clawed hand. "They are nothing but primitive apes with no real understanding of the universe's power." His words were met with uneasy murmurs. The Sikuri representative, a sharp-eyed species known for their intelligence, leaned forward, her silver skin shimmering under the council lights. "You speak as though they are inconsequential," she said coolly. "Yet, their warships have been spotted engaging Vrika patrol ships, and their weapons defy all logic. What if they truly possess something beyond our grasp?" Velorn scoffed, but before he could respond, a flickering hologram interrupted the conversation. A new transmission had arrived. The room fell silent as the projection came to life. Captain Celine Duval stood at the forefront, her face unwavering, though her eyes held a quiet fire. She was human, young, confident, and deadly serious. Behind her, the insignia of the United Earth Fleet glimmered, an insignia that had never before been seen by these alien empires. "This is Captain Celine Duval of the United Earth Fleet," she began, her voice calm, but carrying an unmistakable authority. "I come with a warning. Our fleet is here to establish our place in the galaxy. We do not seek your permission. We only seek your understanding." The council leaders were taken aback, exchanging uncertain glances. The nerve of this human, addressing them like equals. "We will not leave," Duval continued, "and we will not be intimidated. You will come to learn what humanity is capable of." As the transmission ended, Velorn's voice filled the room once again, sharp with anger. "Foolish humans," he bellowed. "Do they not understand their place? No species has ever spoken to us in this way." The Sikuri representative, her expression unreadable, spoke softly, her voice like a whisper of wind. "Perhaps they know something we do not. We have underestimated them before. I suggest we prepare for a confrontation." In the depths of space, the Judicator, Earth's most advanced warship, loomed like a dark shadow. The sleek, imposing ship was a symbol of humanity's newfound might. On board, Captain Duval stood at the helm, her hands steady on the controls, eyes scanning the void beyond the ship's viewports. "We've made contact," she said to her crew, her voice firm, but tinged with anticipation. "The galaxy knows we're here, and now we show them what we're capable of." Her crew, hardened veterans from Earth's most elite units, stood ready for the mission ahead. They were well aware of the risks, but they had one thing in common. They were humans. They had survived the harshest conditions of their homeworld, overcome insurmountable odds, and now they stood at the edge of a new era. With a nod from Duval, the Judicator engaged its engines. The ship moved forward, cutting through the stars with speed and precision no alien warship could match. As they entered deeper into the unknown regions of space, the crew braced themselves for the challenges ahead. They were not here to ask for permission. They were here to take their place as the new rulers of the stars. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. The human warships had arrived, and they would shatter all expectations. The Zorith were the first to make a move. Their empire stretched across several star systems, their warships as massive as mountains, their weapons as deadly as supernovas. When the human fleet entered the Zorith cluster, they expected a swift obliteration. Instead, what they found was something entirely unexpected. The Judicator led the charge into the heart of the Zorith-controlled sector. Its sleek, dark form appeared on the edge of the system, flanked by a handful of smaller human ships. They were vastly outnumbered. Countless Zorith warships loomed just beyond the edge of the asteroid belt, their engines glowing like embers in the vast blackness of space. The Zoreth fleet was far larger, far more advanced in sheer numbers, and their reputation for ruthless destruction preceded them. Captain Duval stood at the helm, her fingers gripping the controls with practiced precision. A flick of a switch, and the ship's powerful shields hummed to life, wrapping the Judicator in a nearly indestructible barrier. She was no stranger to battle, but even she felt the weight of this encounter. This was humanity's first real test against an alien power. Enemy ships on our sensors. Captain, Lieutenant Harrow reported from the tactical station, his voice steady, but with an edge of concern. Hundreds of Zoreth warships are closing in. They've locked weapons. Duval's eyes never left the viewport, where the glowing Zoreth ships grew larger. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Full power to engines and weapons. Let's show them why they shouldn't have underestimated us. The Judicator moved swiftly, darting to the side as a massive energy beam from a Zoreth destroyer streaked past them, narrowly missing. In the next moment, the Judicator fired back. The first salvo from the human ship was unlike anything the Zoreth had ever seen. The Judicator unleashed a barrage of energy blasts that seemed to distort the very fabric of space itself. The blasts hit their targets with pinpoint accuracy, causing Zoreth ships to explode in violent bursts, their metal hulls crumpling as if they were paper. Direct hit, Harrow called out, his voice rising with excitement. They've lost their lead ship. Their fleet is disarrayed. For the first time, the Zoreth fleet hesitated. The once proud empire had never faced an opponent with such raw power, let alone one so unpredictable. Their response was immediate, but futile. The Zoreth admiral, who had been watching from the command bridge of his flagship, the Vengeance, snarled in fury. These humans are not like anything we have encountered. We underestimated them. He quickly turned to his crew. Re-engage. Bring the fleet in close. Overwhelm them with sheer force. Show them that the Zoreth will never bow to such a threat. The Zoreth ships moved in, closing the distance rapidly. Their cannons opened fire, and massive energy bolts sliced through the void toward the Judicator like deadly harpoons. But the human ship was faster, more agile. The Judicator wove between the incoming fire, its superior eye calculating perfect evasions and counterattacks. It was as though the ship could read the Zoreth's every move before they made it. Deploy countermeasures, Duval ordered, her voice calm despite the chaos. A series of decoy drones shot out from the Judicator, drawing fire away from the main ship, while a second barrage of gravity warp missiles launched toward the Zoreth fleet. The missiles twisted space-time around them, creating miniature black holes that devoured enemy ships whole. The Zoreth admiral, witnessing the chaos unfolding before him, felt the true weight of their mistake. The Judicator wasn't just powerful, it was precise, its tactics incomprehensible to any conventional military strategy they knew. Within moments, half the Zoreth fleet was reduced to debris. The battle raged on, but the outcome was already clear. The Zoreth ships, once confident in their numbers, were being systematically destroyed by a fleet that fought with unmatched coordination and technological superiority. The human warships, though few in number, had proven that the galaxy was about to witness something truly unprecedented. In the chaos of the battle, Captain Duval's voice rang out once more. All units, continue the assault. We're not just showing them our strength, we're showing them our will. Let the galaxy know that humanity does not bow. The final blow came as the Judicator fired a concentrated energy beam that pierced the heart of the Zoreth flagship, the Vengeance. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash, the shockwave sweeping through the remaining Zoreth vessels, causing them to panic and retreat. The Zoreth had been humbled, their pride shattered. But this was only the beginning. As the Judicator and its fleet returned to their formation, Captain Duval surveyed the wreckage of the battlefield. There was no time for celebration. Humanity had proven their strength, but this was only the first step in a much larger conflict. The galaxy would be watching, and the real war had only just begun. The victory over the Zoreth fleet sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News of the annihilation spread across star systems like wildfire, and the once invincible reputation of the Zorith Empire began to crumble. Alien leaders scrambled to understand how humanity, a species thought to be primitive, had defeated them so decisively. But rather than retreating into uncertainty, the galaxy's remaining powers chose the only course they saw as viable. They would unite to destroy this new and dangerous threat before humanity could tip the balance of power forever. In the high chambers of the Vrika Dominion, representatives of the galaxy's most influential species convened in secret. The Vrika, known for their brutal warrior culture, were the first to react with fury. Their eyes burned with disdain as they observed the remains of Zorith warships floating aimlessly in the wake of their fleet's destruction. "We cannot allow this," declared High Commander Kragan, his deep voice like thunder. "The Zorith were only the first. We've watched humanity from a distance for too long, and now they've shown us the terrifying extent of their strength." The Psycheri, a race of intelligent and calculating diplomats, watched in silence, their translucent skin flickering with subtle light as they exchanged glances. Their leader, Cinder, spoke softly but with cold precision. "They have shattered the Zorith, yes, but that is not their only strength. Humanity's ingenuity is what makes them dangerous. Their technology, unknown, erratic, cannot be understood by conventional means. We are better off joining forces now than facing them one by one." A third faction, the Tal Reth, a mercantile race who had long traded in knowledge and technology, was also present. Their representative Morath, a slender being whose black, jewel-like eyes gleamed in the light, nodded in agreement. "Fear has gripped the galaxy," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "The humans will continue to pick off our fleets unless we act now. We must form an alliance to strike them before their strength grows any further." Thus, an unprecedented coalition was born. The Zorith, Vrika, Sikari, and Zalreth united under a banner of fear and desperation. They knew that humanity's technological edge was too great for any single empire to handle, so they combined their resources, pooling fleets and weapons, crafting strategies that they hoped could overwhelm the humans. However, as the council meeting broke up, one question lingered in the minds of every representative. Would their combined might be enough to stop the human juggernaut? Back in the Human Command Center aboard the Judicator, Captain Duval received intelligence reports of the alien coalition's formation. Her expression remained impassive as the data poured in. Though the odds now stacked against humanity were formidable, she wasn't concerned. Yet. "We knew they'd come together eventually," Duval muttered, her fingers tapping the edge of her console as she analyzed the situation. "They're scared. And when an enemy is scared, they make mistakes." Lieutenant Harrow looked up from his station. "We can't afford to underestimate them. They've brought together the most powerful forces in the galaxy." Duval turned, her gaze steely. "Underestimate them? No, but we can't play by their rules. We'll fight differently, unpredictably. The alien coalition may have numbers, but we have something far more valuable. They won't see us coming." She gestured to the large holographic map in the center of the room, showing the locations of the alien fleets rapidly assembling near human-controlled space. "Prepare the fleet. They think they can overwhelm us. Let's make sure they never get the chance." As her orders were passed through the ship, a deep sense of urgency settled across the crew. They were no longer merely defending. They were taking the fight to the heart of the galaxy. Duval's strategy was already in motion. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and leave them wondering if they could ever trust their own intelligence again. But the enemy was not idle. The alien coalition, unified in their mission to destroy humanity, had already begun to coordinate their attack. Their plan was simple: wipe out Earth's defenses before humanity could mount a true offensive, then destroy the human fleet in a series of calculated, coordinated strikes. They knew that if they could cripple the Judicator and its fleet, the human war machine would fall apart. What the aliens did not anticipate was that humanity thrived in chaos. As the human fleet launched a series of counterattacks on scattered alien outposts, Duval gave her final command before the battle began. Let them think they're winning. We'll make them doubt everything they know about war. For Captain Duval and her crew, the real war was about to begin. And this time, it wouldn't be fought on terms the alien empires could predict. The alien coalition moved swiftly, their combined fleets entering human-controlled space with overwhelming force. The silence that had fallen over Earth's command centers was broken by a series of urgent alarms, signaling the arrival of the enemy fleets. This was the moment they had feared. Humanity's enemies had finally united, and they were coming for Earth. Captain Duval stood at the helm of the Judicator, her eyes narrowed with determination as she watched the intelligence reports flood in. The enemy's fleets were massive, their firepower daunting. But Duval wasn't afraid. She had fought battles in worse conditions. What she saw in those reports wasn't just an enemy. She saw an opportunity. Their arrogance is their weakness, Duval said to her senior officers. They believe they can crush us with their numbers. We're going to prove them wrong. Her fingers flew across the control panel, activating the fleet-wide communication system. Prepare for an ambush. We'll force them to fight on our terms. We know their strategies. They don't know ours. Let's make sure they learn the hard way. The plan was deceptively simple. Lure the alien fleets deep into Earth's outer orbit, then strike quickly and decisively. The key to victory wasn't brute force. It was surprise and precision. Duval had already initiated a series of decoy operations, leading the enemy to believe they were attacking unprepared and vulnerable targets across human-held space. Meanwhile, the bulk of the human fleet, hidden in the shadow of a nearby gas giant, was ready to pounce. As the alien fleets drew closer, the first move came from the Zoreth, the largest faction in the coalition. Their flagship, the Vengeance, led the charge, its weapons primed and ready to annihilate anything in its path. But they had not accounted for the ingenuity of the human fleet. Captain, the Zoreth have taken the bait, Lieutenant Harrow reported, his voice steady. They're entering the trap. We're ready to engage. Duval nodded, her expression unwavering. Let's make this a lesson they'll never forget. With a swift command, the human fleet engaged their cloaking devices, disappearing into the void of space. The Judicator and its supporting ships moved silently, slipping behind the enemy lines. As the Zoreth flagship drew closer to its supposed victory, the trap was sprung. Suddenly, the human fleet emerged from the shadows, a hailstorm of gravity-warp missiles and energy blasts erupting from every angle. The Zoreth warships were caught off guard, their formations disintegrating under the precision of the human assault. The Judicator fired a focused energy beam at the Vengeance, cutting through the Zoreth flagship's shields with ease and sending the ship into a catastrophic spiral. We've got a direct hit, Harrow shouted from the tactical station. Their flagship is going down. The destruction of the Vengeance was only the beginning. The human fleet tore through the remaining Zoreth ships, systematically obliterating their formations with a combination of advanced weaponry and expert tactics. The Zoreth, once the terror of the galaxy, were in full retreat, their pride shattered in a matter of hours. But the victory didn't come without a cost. As the battle raged on, Captain Duval felt the weight of each loss. Every human ship that fell was a reminder that the stakes of this war were far higher than she had ever imagined. Yet she didn't hesitate. She couldn't afford to. Once the Zoreth fleet had been reduced to nothing but debris, Duval issued a call to the rest of the alien coalition. "This is humanity's message," she broadcasted, her voice cutting through the silence of space. "You thought you could crush us with your numbers, with your arrogance, but we've shown you our strength. This is only the beginning. If you want to continue this fight, we'll be waiting." Her words echoed across the stars, the silence that followed laden with the threat of what was to come. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer just a force to be reckoned with. They were a new power, a new order, and they would not bow to anyone. As the last remnants of the Zoreth fleet drifted into the void, Captain Duval allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The first battle of the counteroffensive had been won, but the war was far from over. The remaining alien factions would not back down. They would come for Earth, for humanity's heart. And when they did, Duval and her crew would be ready. The aftermath of the Zoreth defeat was a bitter pill for the alien coalition to swallow. News of their failure spread like wildfire, and the remaining empires realized that humanity was not just a rogue, insignificant species. They were a powerful force that had torn through their ranks with frightening efficiency. While the Zoreth licked their wounds, the next challenge emerged: the Sicarii. The Sicarii were not as reliant on sheer military might as the Zoreth, but they were masters of diplomacy, intelligence, and psychological warfare. Their species thrived on manipulation, subterfuge, and strategic alliances. The Sicarii believed that no one could outsmart them, not even the humans, but they had underestimated the resolve and cunning of Captain Celine Duval and the human fleet. In the cold, sterile corridors of the Sicarii High Command, Sindar, their leader, paced nervously. The defeat of the Zoreth had left a crack in the coalition, and the Sicarii knew they were next in line. They had spent decades building a network of spies and informants throughout the galaxy, feeding them information on every enemy, every weakness. They had thought their subterfuge would be enough to topple the humans without lifting a finger. But now it was clear. The Sicarii had underestimated the one thing that could break their defenses: humanity's unpredictability. Cinder, said one of the Sicarii strategists, a tall figure with dark blue skin, "Our networks are being compromised. The humans have turned our own spies against us. They're infiltrating every system we've built over millennia." Cinder's eyes narrowed, a sharp glint of anger in them. "I see. They've been using our own intelligence to dismantle us. They're better than we thought." He paused, his sharp mind working at full capacity. "We need to end this, once and for all. We'll pull every resource we have. If they think they can infiltrate us, they'll soon learn the price of underestimating the Sicarii." The Sicarii leadership made their decision. They would strike the human fleet before it could strike again. Using their extensive intelligence network, they had located the Judicator and its allied ships, hidden in the outer reaches of a forgotten star system. The Sicarii's plan was to launch a surgical strike, using advanced cloaking technology to infiltrate the human fleet's defenses and disable their command ships. Once the humans were in disarray, they would attack with their full force. But the humans had anticipated this. On board the Judicator, Captain Duval received a disturbing transmission from her intelligence officer, Commander Alexei, whose sharp instincts had never failed them. "Captain," Alexei said, his voice tense, "we've detected unusual activity around the outer system. The Sicarii fleet is mobilizing. There's something off about their movements. We think they're preparing to strike." Duval's lips curved into a thin smile. "Of course they are. They think they can outsmart us. They think we won't see them coming. Let's prove them wrong." The human fleet had spent weeks preparing for this moment. They had learned how to anticipate and adapt to every move the Sicarii made. Duval had already begun implementing a plan to counter the Sicarii's cloaking technology. Through a series of high-frequency pulses and sensor scans, they could uncover hidden ships, even those equipped with the most advanced stealth capabilities. "Prepare the fleet for a counterstrike," Duval ordered, her voice cold and calculated. "We'll turn their tactics against them. If they want a war of wits, they've chosen the wrong opponents." The trap was set. The Sicarii fleet, believing they were on the verge of a major victory, advanced, cloaked ships slipping through the darkness of the star system, undetected. At least, that's what they thought. As they moved in on the Judicator, the human fleet activated a series of sensor grids revealing the hidden Sicarii ships. The ambush they had so carefully planned was now in full view. "All units, engage," Duval commanded. The human fleet erupted into action. The Judicator fired first, its energy beams lighting up the dark void of space as they struck the heart of the Psycheri fleet. The Psycheri ships, once confident in their stealth, were caught off guard, unable to retreat in time. The Judicator's advanced targeting systems made short work of their defenses, pinpointing weak spots with precision that even the Psycheri's sophisticated tactics couldn't account for. Chaos ensued. Ships that had once been invisible to enemy sensors were now exposed, their cloaking technology useless against the humans' relentless assault. In the midst of the firestorm, the Psycheri flagship, the Luminous Thought, was targeted. With its defenses crumbling, Cinder ordered a desperate retreat. But it was too late. The Judicator fired one final shot, a focused pulse that hit the heart of the flagship, collapsing its energy core and sending it into a fiery explosion that illuminated the battlefield. The Psycheri fleet, broken and scattered, attempted to regroup, but without their leadership, they were no match for the human fleet. In a matter of hours, the once mighty Psycheri Empire's forces were obliterated, their strategies rendered useless. As the last of the Psycheri ships flowed into hyperspace, Captain Duval surveyed the wreckage. The victory was hard-won, but humanity had proven once again that they were a force to be reckoned with. Duval's eyes hardened. The Psycheri had fallen, but the remaining factions would not take this defeat lying down. The war was far from over, and humanity's enemies had just learned that every time they underestimated humans, they would pay a steep price. The fall of the Zorith and the destruction of the Psycheri sent ripples of fear through the remaining alien empires, but it was the Vrika who were the most alarmed. The Vrika, fierce warriors known for their brutal conquests, were not used to feeling vulnerable. For centuries, they had ruled over countless systems with an iron fist, crushing any who dared oppose them. But humanity's rise, their ingenuity, and their victories had shattered the myth of Vrika invincibility. High Commander Kragan of the Vrika stood at the helm of his flagship, the Wrath of Vorith, as he watched the shattered remains of the Psycheri fleet drift through space. His face was a mask of fury and determination. The Vrika had always prided themselves on their martial prowess, but the humans had proven themselves far more than mere opponents. "We cannot allow them to continue like this," Kragan growled, his sharp teeth bared. "We are the Vrika. We crush our enemies. We do not hide in the shadows like the Zorith or the Psycheri. This human threat will be eradicated, and we will be the ones to do it." Kragan's strategy was simple but deadly. He would attack humanity directly, destroying their heart. No more playing games. No more subterfuge. The Vrika were coming for Earth itself. As Kragan prepared his fleets for the invasion, Captain Duval and her officers on the Judicator received troubling intelligence. The Vrika were moving, and they were moving fast. Their fleet, larger than anything humanity had faced yet, was heading toward Earth's solar system. The war had escalated to an all-or-nothing confrontation. The Vrika would not retreat, and they would not stop until Earth lay in ruin. "Captain, their fleet is massive," Lieutenant Harrow said, his voice taut with concern. "We don't have the numbers to match them head-on. Even with our superior technology, the Vrika's sheer size is overwhelming." Duval's face remained calm as she absorbed the information. "We've faced worse odds," she said quietly, though there was steel in her voice. "And we won." "But Earth," Harrow began, unsure. "Earth won't fall today," Duval interrupted. "We fight not just for survival, but for our future. Humanity's strength lies in our ability to adapt, to innovate when we are pushed to the brink. We won't meet them on their terms. We'll make the Vrika regret ever thinking they could challenge us." Duval's mind raced as she formulated a plan. The Vrika were known for their overwhelming force, but they were not known for their strategic subtlety. Their culture revered brute strength, often disregarding finesse and subtlety in favor of direct conflict. Humanity, on the other hand, had proven time and time again that they could turn the tide with ingenuity and tactics. Duval turned to her crew. "We're not going to face them head-on in a conventional battle. We're going to use their pride against them. If they want to fight, we'll give them a war they will never forget. The first part of her plan involved creating a diversion. Duval knew that the Vrika's flagship, the Wrath of Voreth, would be at the forefront of the attack. If they could neutralize the flagship or force it into a vulnerable position, the entire Vrika fleet would lose its command structure. Without leadership, they would be disorganized, ripe for a decisive blow. Duval had the perfect weapon for this, a prototype weapon developed in secret, an experimental gravity bomb capable of destabilizing a ship's internal systems and gravitational fields, rendering it helpless. The Judicator was fast and stealthy enough to get in close without being detected. A small strike force of elite human warships would act as the distraction, drawing the Vrika into an ambush they couldn't escape. Begin preparations for deployment, Duval ordered. We'll split the fleet. The main force will engage their rear. The Judicator will infiltrate their front lines, and will take out the Wrath of Voreth. As the plan took shape, the tension in the air grew palpable. The human fleet, though outnumbered, had a resolve that no alien force had yet understood. The Vrika were the greatest test humanity had faced, but Captain Duval was ready to show them what humanity's true power was: resilience and unity in the face of overwhelming odds. The Vrika were about to experience something they had never encountered before: an enemy who would not break, no matter the force. And Captain Duval was determined to make sure the Vrika paid the ultimate price for underestimating humanity. The Vrika fleet arrived at Earth's solar system like a storm, massive warships carving through the void with terrifying speed. Their flagship, the Wrath of Voreth, was the center of their strength, a behemoth of destruction, armed with enough firepower to annihilate entire fleets in minutes. Captain Duval and her crew watched it approach from the Judicator's command deck, the massive holographic display showing the enemy ships forming up in battle formations. "We've never faced anything like this before," Lieutenant Harrow said, his voice tinged with awe and unease. The Vrika fleet was more than just an army. It was a symbol of Vrika dominance, a force that had crushed countless civilizations in its path. Humanity was now standing directly in its way. Duval's expression remained stoic. "And we won't let them crush us," she said, her voice calm but deadly. "Prepare the fleet. We're going to give them a fight they've never imagined." The first phase of Duval's plan was in motion. The distraction force of human ships, including stealth bombers and advanced cloaking devices, slipped into position behind the Vrika fleet. They were the bait, drawing the Vrika into the trap. "Distraction force is ready," Commander Alexei reported. "We're in position. The Vrika are starting to notice our presence. They've launched their interceptors." Duval nodded. "Good. Let's give them a show." The human fleet's decoy ships erupted from their hidden positions, launching flares and fake missile barrages to create chaos in the Vrika lines. The Vrika responded predictably, dispatching wave after wave of interceptors to deal with what they thought was a small force of human ships. It was precisely what Duval had counted on. The Vrika, in their arrogance, underestimated the humans yet again. Meanwhile, the Judicator and a small task force of specialized ships slipped through the chaos, invisible to the Vrika's sensors thanks to their advanced cloaking technology. They made their way toward the Wrath of Voreth, the heart of the Vrika fleet, where Kragan himself stood ready to strike down humanity. "This is it," Duval said, staring at the distant hulking figure of the flagship through the viewports. "Prepare the gravity bomb for deployment. We only get one shot at this." The gravity bomb, a weapon of unimaginable power, was humanity's secret weapon. It had been designed to disrupt the internal gravitational systems of large ships, collapsing them from the inside out. Once deployed, it would create a gravitational anomaly so powerful that it would render the Wrath of Voreth useless. No shields, no weapons, no escape. "Gravity bomb deployed," Commander Harrow said, his hands flying over the controls. "We've got a clear shot at the flagship. All systems are green." Duval gripped the armrests of her chair, her eyes never leaving the holographic display. The time for subtlety was over. She was about to take a gamble, one that could either win the war or shatter humanity's hopes. She inhaled deeply, then gave the order. Launch the bomb. In an instant, the bomb was ejected from the Judicator, its trajectory perfect. As the weapon hurtled toward the Wrath of Vorith, Kregan's flagship, it seemed as though everything slowed down. The Vrika flagship, so proud and powerful, was about to feel the weight of humanity's fury. The bomb hit the Wrath of Vorith with devastating force. The gravitational anomaly caused an immediate chain reaction within the ship, shaking its internal structure. The Vrika crew had no time to react. Systems began to fail. The massive warship's once impenetrable shields buckled under the force of the anomaly. Within seconds, the flagship was crippled, its hull breaching, and its weapon systems going dark. A deafening explosion ripped through the heart of the ship as the internal core collapsed under the strain, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. "Flagship down," Harrow shouted, a sense of disbelief creeping into his voice. "The Wrath of Vorith is out of commission." But the battle was far from over. The remaining Vrika fleet, now without their command structure, spiraled into disarray. Kregan's defeat didn't signal an end to the war, but it was a crippling blow. Without their flagship, the Vrika were lost in the chaos, unable to organize their attacks. The human fleet, seeing the opportunity, launched a devastating counteroffensive. Advanced human warships, equipped with precision weapons and cloaking systems, cut through the Vrika forces with surgical strikes, picking apart the disorganized fleet one ship at a time. Captain Duval stood firm as the battle unfolded. "Keep the pressure on," she commanded. "We finish this now." The Vrika, once unstoppable, now faced their greatest defeat in centuries. Their pride had been shattered, their flagship destroyed, and their warriors scattered. Humanity, though vastly outnumbered, had proven that the strength of a galaxy was no match for the determination of a single species fighting for its survival. As the last of the Vrika ships fled into the darkness of space, Duval allowed herself a brief sigh of relief. They had won, but the cost had been high, and the galaxy was still filled with enemies who sought humanity's destruction. Yet, for the first time, humanity's enemies were the ones who feared the humans. The war was far from over, but humanity had just taken one more crucial step toward their ultimate victory. The remnants of the Vrika fleet limped away, their once unstoppable force reduced to little more than scattered debris. Their defeat, swift and brutal, echoed through the vastness of space. For humanity, this was a momentous victory. The Judicator and its fleet had dealt a crippling blow to one of the galaxy's greatest military powers. But in the back of Captain Duval's mind, she knew this was only a chapter in a much larger story. As the dust settled, Earth's war councils convened in orbit around their homeworld, where the human fleet gathered in the quiet aftermath. The sight of Earth's blue oceans and green continents below them, a reminder of what they were fighting to protect, filled Duval with a sense of quiet pride. But she was no fool. The Vrika's retreat didn't mean they were defeated entirely. It meant they were regrouping, recalculating, and it was only a matter of time before they would return with even greater force. Duval stood before the council, her expression resolute. "We've won a decisive battle," she began, her voice steady, but carrying the weight of 1,000 souls. "But the war isn't over. The galaxy knows our strength now, and we have many enemies still out there. The Vrika will not forget this defeat, and they will seek revenge." A murmur of agreement passed through the room. The destruction of the Wrath of Vorith had shattered the Vrika's command structure, but their warrior pride would demand retaliation. The Zoreth and the Psykeri, both nursing their own wounds, would also be watching, waiting to see what humanity did next. There was no room for complacency, no time for rest. "We cannot afford to rest on our laurels," Duval continued. "We have shown the galaxy that humanity is not just a surviving species. We are a rising power. It's time to take the fight to them." Her words stirred something in the room, an electric charge that buzzed through the council. They had all watched the Vrika fleet fall, seen their empire reduced to rubble. They knew what was at stake. This war was humanity's fight for survival, but it was also a fight for their place among the stars. We need to push forward, capitalize on our momentum. Admiral Thompson, Duval's trusted strategist, said. But we'll need to unite the human colonies. The empires we've just defeated won't stop with us. They'll try to divide and conquer. We need to consolidate our resources and prepare for a larger war. Duval nodded. We'll form alliances where we can and strengthen our defenses. The days of humanity hiding in the shadows are over. We fight for our future, and the galaxy will have to reckon with that. As plans for the next phase of the war were set into motion, Duval took a moment to reflect on the path that had brought humanity here. It had been a long road filled with sacrifices, pain, and loss, but each battle had brought them closer to this moment, the dawn of a new era for humanity. Outside, the stars continued to burn, cold and distant, but now they felt just a little bit closer. Humanity, once considered a weak and insignificant species by the galactic powers, had now become the one force that could unite or divide the galaxy. The future was uncertain, but the resolve of the human spirit was unwavering. As Duval gazed out at the stars, she felt the weight of the galaxy on her shoulders. Victory against the Vrika was only the beginning. The war was not over, but humanity had shown that they could not be broken. For the first time in history, the galaxy knew the price of underestimating mankind, and the consequences would ripple out, far beyond the reach of Earth. The road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but the message was clear. Humanity had not only survived, they had evolved. And now, the galaxy would either learn to accept them as equals or face the full wrath of a species that would never bow again.